You ever have a moment when you're sitting with someone you love, maybe your spouse, an old friend, a parent, and you catch yourself staring just a little longer than usual? Something feels different. It's not dramatic. They're not crying out in pain or struggling to breathe. But there's a quiet shift, a change in the way they move, speak, or even look at you. And deep down you wonder, is this just part of getting older? Or is it something more? Aging brings its fair share of changes, and most of them are expected. We all slow down a little. We might forget a name here and there. We might prefer an afternoon nap instead of a day out. But there are some changes, some very subtle signs that could mean something deeper. Signs that someone we care about might be approaching the final stage of their life. Now, I know this isn't an easy topic, but it's one that matters, because recognizing these signs early on can help us give better care, make more meaningful memories, and ensure the people we love leave this world with dignity, comfort, and peace. It's not about being afraid. It's about being prepared, aware, and most importantly, present. So today we're going to talk about 5 quiet but powerful signs that a person might be in their final year of life. These aren't the signs you see in medical textbooks or dramatic hospital scenes. These are the ones that happen quietly around the dinner table, during your usual walks, or while you're folding laundry and chatting about old memories. Let's start with something many people overlook: a noticeable decline in appetite and changes in eating habits. This isn't just about skipping a meal now and then. We all do that. But when someone who used to love their morning coffee and toast suddenly leaves half of it untouched, or starts turning down favorite meals regularly, it can be a gentle red flag. You might notice they say things like, "I'm just not hungry," or "everything tastes the same." Their weight might drop little by little, clothes getting looser, belts cinched tighter. It's not just about food. It's about what food represents: energy, vitality, life. As the body begins to prepare itself for the final stage, its priorities shift. Digestion slows. The need for calories drops. Even taste buds change. And sometimes, it's not just physical. There's a mental and emotional component too. They may lose interest in meal times because they feel too tired to eat, or because chewing and swallowing become more difficult. If you notice someone pushing food around their plate more often than actually eating it, take note. It might be time to speak gently with a doctor or care provider. Now, hand in hand with changes in appetite is another quiet but powerful signal: a noticeable withdrawal from social life or things they once enjoyed. This one can be especially tricky to spot because it's easy to explain away. Maybe your dad skips his weekly card game with the neighbors, and you think, "Oh, he's just tired this week." Then the next week he misses it again. Then again, before you know it, it's been months since he's done anything he used to enjoy. People in their final year often begin to pull back, not out of depression, necessarily, but because their energy is limited. Socializing, even chatting on the phone, can feel exhausting. You might notice shorter conversations, less enthusiasm when you suggest outings, or even a quiet preference for just sitting in silence. This doesn't mean they don't love you or enjoy your company. It just means their inner world is becoming more prominent. They might be processing things internally, reflecting, or even preparing themselves emotionally in ways they can't explain. It's heartbreaking to witness, especially if you're used to seeing them full of laughter and spirit. But your presence still matters, even if they don't say much, even if they fall asleep while you're talking. Just being there, holding their hand, sitting with them, it makes a bigger difference than you might realize. And then there's a third sign that often flies under the radar: changes in sleep patterns, especially excessive sleeping during the day or restless nights. Now, we all know that older adults tend to sleep differently. It's not unusual for someone in their 70s or 80s to wake up early or take afternoon naps. But in the final stretch of life, those patterns can shift significantly. You might notice your loved ones sleeping more and more during the day, sometimes 16, even 18 hours. They may be hard to wake, or on the flip side, they may seem agitated at night, restless, moving around in bed without really finding peace. This can be due to many reasons. The body might be conserving energy. There could be discomfort that prevents deep sleep. Sometimes it's part of what's called terminal restlessness, a phase where the body and mind are in transition. The important thing here isn't to fix the sleep pattern, but to make sure your loved one is as comfortable as possible. Maybe it's adjusting pillows, creating a more calming environment, or just sitting quietly with them during those wakeful moments at night. What matters most is recognizing these changes, not as problems to be solved, but as messages from the body, messages saying, slow down, I'm preparing. When we learn to listen to those messages without fear or panic, we give ourselves the chance to be more loving, more present, and more in tune with what truly matters. And that's the heart of this conversation. Not fear, not sadness, but presence. Because when we recognize these signs early, we don't just brace ourselves for loss. We open the door to giving more love, creating more memories, and honoring someone's journey in a truly beautiful way. Now that we've talked about these early signs, changes in appetite, withdrawal from social life, and shifting sleep patterns, let's continue exploring the quiet signals that often go unnoticed, but hold deep meaning. Sometimes what speaks the loudest isn't what's said, but what's shown quietly, subtly, in the small corners of a person's day. You start to notice the shift, not in grand gestures, but in the little things. The way they sit longer than usual before standing up. The slower, almost cautious way they move from one room to another. And it's in those moments you begin to realize that their body is whispering something we need to hear if we're willing to slow down and really pay attention. One of those quiet whispers often comes through physical weakness or noticeable fatigue, and not the kind that disappears after a nap. This is a deeper kind of tired. You might notice them struggling to carry something they used to lift with ease. Or maybe it takes them 3 or 4 tries to get out of a chair when it used to be one smooth motion. Even walking across the living room might seem like it takes all the energy they have for the day. You might hear them sigh more often, or lean on furniture as they move through the house. What used to be a simple walk to the kitchen becomes a slow, deliberate shuffle. There's a heaviness in their steps, almost like gravity has turned up its dial just for them. And it's not because they've suddenly become lazy or less interested in life. It's that their muscles are growing weaker, their endurance is fading, and their body is starting to conserve energy for the basics. It's easy to miss, especially if you only see them now and then. But when you're around someone consistently, you start to notice these changes add up. They sit more, move less, they nap, but still seem tired. And here's the thing, it's not something we should try to push them through. Encouraging exercise or better nutrition has its place, sure. But when the body is truly winding down, rest isn't just a preference, it's a need. And it's in those moments when you see them nodding off mid-sentence, or holding your hand with a gentler grip than usual, that you realize something sacred is unfolding. The body is slowly letting go of its usual demands. It's choosing simplicity. It's conserving what little it has left. And it's asking us, in its own quiet way, to do the same, to slow down, to be present, and to meet them where they are, not where we wish they still were. Another sign that can catch families by surprise, because it feels so emotional, so personal, is when a loved one starts becoming confused, disoriented, or starts having trouble remembering things in ways they never did before. And again, we're not talking about typical forgetfulness, like misplacing your keys, or needing a reminder about a doctor's appointment. We're talking about moments that feel like a different level altogether. Maybe they suddenly ask what day it is 3 times in the same conversation, or they forget where they are, even though they've lived in the same house for decades. Sometimes they mix up names, or they get lost in the middle of a story they've told 100 times. You might notice them staring off, unsure of how to respond, or repeating questions you've already answered. And the hardest part? Sometimes it's not every day. There are moments when they're clear and engaged, and other times when they seem almost like a different person altogether. That back and forth can be confusing, even painful for those around them. But what's happening is often part of the body and brain beginning to disconnect, not out of fear or frustration, but as part of the natural process of shutting down. It can be a mix of reduced oxygen flow, chemical changes in the brain, and general fatigue. And it's not always linear. Some days are better than others. As hard as it is, this is where our patience becomes the most important gift we can give. Instead of correcting them, or pointing out what they forgot, sometimes what they need most is simply to feel safe. To hear, it's okay, I'm here, even if they don't quite know where here is. Reassurance goes a long way in moments like that, more than explanations or facts. Because at the end of the day, people don't always remember what you said, but they always remember how you made them feel. These changes in cognition can also come with emotional shifts. You might notice someone becoming more withdrawn, more tearful, or more anxious. Or surprisingly, they may become more peaceful, even more cheerful, in a way that feels out of step with everything else happening physically. That emotional shift is just another part of the body's gentle transition, a deep kind of processing that isn't always visible to the outside world. And as these changes unfold, it's important to remember this. You don't need to be perfect in how you respond. There's no script, no one right thing to say or do. What matters most is showing up with love and patience. Your presence, your voice, your touch, it matters more than you'll ever know. Even if they don't seem to notice or remember, even if they're confused or restless, something in them feels the comfort of not being alone. So many of us spend our lives fearing this part of the journey, thinking it's all sorrow and loss. But there's a kind of beauty here too, a quiet, sacred beauty, in simply being with someone as they move through their final season. It's where love becomes less about words and more about presence, less about doing and more about being. Now, with these emotional and cognitive shifts becoming more visible, it helps us see just how connected the mind and body really are. When one slows, the other follows. And as the light begins to dim, we're invited not to panic, but to sit close, to listen more, and to find peace in the silence between words. Let's keep this conversation going. There's one more sign that brings all of this together, and it's often the most misunderstood. We'll talk about that next, and explore how to meet it with gentleness, dignity, and maybe even a little grace. There's something tender about watching someone begin to drift more and more into sleep, even in the middle of the day. At first, it just seems like a nap, maybe a bit longer than usual. But over time, you notice it's not just about rest anymore. They're spending more hours in bed, more time with their eyes closed than open. Meals get skipped, conversations trail off, and their world becomes smaller, quieter. It's not always sudden. In fact, it can be so gradual that you only realize it when you look back and think, when was the last time they really spent a full day out of bed? This final sign, the deepening of sleep and the quiet withdrawal from daily life, is often one of the most misunderstood. Some people might mistake it for depression or laziness, but it's not either of those things. It's the body doing something ancient and natural. As energy fades, the body instinctively starts to conserve what little remains. That means more rest, more stillness, and yes, more sleep. Sometimes they'll wake briefly to say a few words, maybe smile or squeeze your hand. But those moments become fewer, and when they do speak, their voice might be softer, their words slower. Even if they seem a little distant, it doesn't mean they're unaware. There's something remarkable about the way the human spirit holds on to connection, even when the body is letting go. You might feel like they're far away, but then they'll say your name, or glance at an old photo, or smile at a familiar song. It's in those flickers that we remember they're still here, just in a different way. You may notice they're eating less too. Meals that used to bring joy now feel like too much effort. Sometimes they'll take a bite or two, just enough to please you, but nothing more. It's hard to witness, especially if you were the one who used to cook for them, care for them, or share meals together. Food is such an expression of love in so many families, so when they stop eating, it can feel personal. But it's not a rejection. Their body simply doesn't need the same kind of fuel anymore. Hydration also becomes less of a priority for the body. The sensation of thirst fades. The systems that used to regulate hunger, digestion, and appetite slow down naturally. It's like the body is slowly closing its shop, one section at a time. And while that sounds scary, it can also be peaceful when we understand it, when we stop fighting it, when we stop trying to fix it. This is the time when comfort becomes the priority, not forcing full meals or waking them up to eat, but instead offering sips of water, moistening their lips, playing music they love, holding their hand, sitting in quiet. These little acts, they matter more than we realize. We might not be able to add more days, but we can make the ones they have left softer, warmer, and filled with love. It's during this phase that people around them often start to prepare, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And yet, no matter how ready we think we are, when that moment comes, it still takes your breath away. There's something so final, so quiet, about someone's last few days or hours. The house might grow still. Conversations shift from plans and to-do list to memories and gratitude. And in those final moments, sometimes all that's left is presence. Just being there. A hand on theirs, a soft blanket, a whisper of, "You're not alone." The thing is, we're rarely taught how to be with someone in this stage. We're taught how to help people recover, how to fight, how to heal, but not how to support someone in letting go. But there's an incredible kind of strength in that too. In simply allowing the process to unfold without fear or resistance. In trusting that even as their body weakens, their spirit is still strong, still listening, still feeling, still receiving love. If you're someone who's witnessing this with a parent, a partner, a dear friend, know this: your presence matters more than you could ever imagine. You don't need to know the perfect thing to say. You don't need to have answers. You just need to show up, sit with them, talk to them, even if they don't respond. Play their favorite music, tell them stories, remind them they're loved. Because in the end, it's not about what we do. It's about how we make someone feel safe, seen, cherished. And if you've already been through this journey with someone you loved, then you know every goodbye is different, but the love remains. The memories, the moments, the laughter, the lessons they left behind, they stay with us. They shape us. They become part of how we move forward, how we carry our own lives with a little more softness, a little more gratitude. It's okay to feel a mix of things: sadness, fear, even relief. All of it is normal. What matters is that we don't turn away from it, that we lean in, that we allow ourselves to be there, in the messy, beautiful truth of what it means to love someone all the way to the end. So if you notice these signs in someone you care about, take a breath. Don't rush. Don't panic. Just be there. Speak kindly. Hold gently. Love deeply. These are the things they'll remember, even if they can't say so. These are the moments that matter most. And if you're watching this today because you've been wondering, worrying, or needing a little guidance, then I want to say this to you directly. You're doing better than you think. Your heart is in the right place. You're showing up, asking questions, learning how to be there in a way that honors the person you love. That's beautiful. And it's enough. Life is fragile, but love isn't. Love carries on. It fills the spaces where words no longer reach. It lights the path forward, even in the quietest, dimmest rooms. And even when we say goodbye, that love stays with us, gently holding our memories, guiding our steps, reminding us of just how deeply we've lived and how deeply we've loved.